All right. So I only had a minute to put this together, so it's not fully baked. I'm not fully prepared here, but I'll walk through some of it. I'll start with Mac, and I'll even talk through some of the things that are going on with Windows. So I have Rancher Desktop and a terminal open here. Now, on Mac, the big change was behind the scenes. We had been using HyperKit before to run everything, and now we're using Lima, which is backed by QEMU, to run our virtual machine. And that was the big change for us. And so that gives us a number of different features. For example, ports above 1024 are all automatically forwarded now. We used to have a port forwarding tab here, and it's not there anymore. The ones below, we're actually working on how we're going to handle here. Hopefully in the 0.5 release, we'll get that solved. But if I go look at, if I just map my local host, you'll see there's a number of ports that aren't usually in use here. And that's actually because these are my host ports that Kubernetes has brought over. So you can see and access those things and expose services. And so that was the big change on the Mac side. Windows is still run the same, but Mac is run differently. The next thing to notice here is we also had an issue where somebody was running K3S before. You couldn't run more than one because they'd all try to use the same localhost port to expose Kubernetes. Now you can configure that port here, and this is both on Mac and Windows. If you look further down here, you'll see we have our supporting utilities. And I'll tell you, one of the neat things is in the same space on Windows, you don't get this because we're actually able to shadow them into the environment. So you can override them, but we provide them by default. And we're doing that on both Windows itself, if you're using the command prompt or PowerShell, or if you're using another Linux distro in WSL, we make them available as well there. And here where you see supporting utilities, on Windows, you actually see a list of your other WSL distros. So if you've got OpenSUSE or Ubuntu, they're listed there, but Rancher Desktop's not. And when you check the box, it'll go ahead and make your kube configuration for Rancher Desktop available in there. So now not only do you have the utilities there, but they all can just work against Rancher Desktop because it's automatically merged in. And that's a big feature on Windows. Another thing that you see here is kubectl, where we link it in. We're actually not linking directly in kubectl anymore. We're linking in something called Kuberuler by Flavio. And the reason is kubectl only is designed to work against one version off of itself. And so if you've got kubectl for or if you've got Kubernetes version 119, kubectl for 118, 119, and 120 are the only ones designed to work against it. If you've got one that's too much newer or too much older, it doesn't work, or it can have problems. And as you see here, we offer a lot of different versions, and that version list is just going to continue to grow. And so we use that instead. So when I run kubectl and I run version, it makes sure, or any of the commands, that the version that I have, in this case, kubectl 122 against Kubernetes 121. If I actually go change my Kubernetes version, and we'll go back to something old, do 117, so it's out of range for that. Now it's going to wipe out everything running in my cluster, and it looks like I do need to download it, so it'll take a second here while it re-downloads, and I'll walk through other things while it re-downloads. Like I said, I was not prepared for this. It'll actually make sure that I use the right version of kubectl when I go ahead and run commands against it, one that's not so far out of range that you can run into issues. And as they do things like server-side apply and have made other changes, we're going to run into more issues with that, because server-side apply, where you do a bunch of that logic in Kubernetes, has gone GA now. Some of the client-side logic they'll pull out as they don't need to support it against a version of Kubernetes. By the way, you're also seeing how long it takes for me to switch a version, even when I don't happen to have the assets for that version installed. So it actually downloaded the bits for Kubernetes that I need, and now it's starting it up right now. So it actually starts the VM. So everything's up and running now in less than a minute, and that's switching my Kubernetes version. Now, if I go run the tool again, you'll see my Kubernetes version, it changed to my kubectl version changed to 117, so that way it can be a version that's supported against it. Now, I'm not sure why it's stopping or what just happened. We may have just run into a bug. Yep, we just ran into a bug live in the demo. Oh, that's great. I'll be tracking that down later. So let me come back up to a newer version here. And in this case, I should have the asset, so it doesn't need to download them, although I'll probably have to quit. Start it back up. So this is the first time I've actually run into that bug in my switching versions demos. And this is probably due to the fact that the setup we have is not as mature with Lima and QEMU yet. So that's what we've got there. The other thing, once it comes back up here that I'll show that was a big feature in this, is we've incorporated image scanning. Now, I can't show you image scanning right now because we've got to wait for Kubernetes to be ready. But we've incorporated the ability to choose any image that's been built in there and go ahead and scan it. So wait for it to come back up. It usually takes a little bit of time for the VM to come up. All right. And image scanning is not available instantly. And the reason for that is it does say everything's live before some things. All right. I may not be able to continue because it keeps stopping for some reason. This is new to me. I did not run into this Friday. So I was going to show you the image scanning, which shows up as a drop-down menu inside of Rancher Desktop. And so when you go to the image listing, you have the ability to do things like pull images, push images, things like that. And then there's now an option to scan an image, and it'll pull up the report of what you get from scanning any image, which is useful because if you've got an image that's a couple weeks old, it probably has a few vulnerabilities. Once you get out to a couple months, it's probably got a lot more vulnerabilities that have been discovered. But it looks like the demo gods are not shining on me today.
A question about image scanning.
Yeah.
Does that, you said it will scan images that were built in the cluster. Does that only apply to built images, or will it scan anything that it has?
It'll scan anything that you've pulled or run or anything at all.
Great, thank you.
And so I could pull down a Postgres image, install the Bitnami chart, get a Postgres image, and next thing you know, it's working. So let's see.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what does it mean regarding disk space, disk usage when I switch clusters? So what is happening behind the scenes? How much space does it take? Am I in trouble if I switch versions too often? Like if I try to pull everything in there?
If you switch versions too often?
Yeah, what does it pull? Does it create a new VM every time, or it just pulls like a Docker image for each version? What does it mean regarding this disk space?
What does it mean regarding disk space? That's a really good question. Mark or Jan, are you on? You might have the better answer to me. I'm not sure that it causes an issue, but I'm not sure anymore because we can switch versions without restarting the VM, and I'm not entirely sure what we have running there.
I think we replaced the K3's binary and the images, but the images are just a tuple that gets preloaded, so they work like any other image. They should get GC'd appropriately.
Yeah, but now that we talk about this, I think we may have a bug there because when you start K3S, it unpacks its internal bundled user space utilities in a path with a UUID, and I don't think that one is getting cleaned up. So I think every time you switch, you're probably losing something like 50 megs or so. So it will still be a while until you fill up your 100 gigs, but we should note that and maybe clean that up.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So why isn't it ready? I'm not sure why my image stuff is not coming up. I don't tend to use the images much. We need a little bit more QA. We do have a QA person coming in to help us catch some of this. But for some reason, something's not working. This is lovely when this happens. It is using, I'm forgetting, the Aqua Security project to do our scanning.
Trivy?
Trivy. It's using Trivy to handle all of our image scanning. I'm not sure why it's not coming up, though. Seems we got another issue. I've been finding bugs this morning, so this would be another one of them.
Since you mentioned it, is there a tool you use to automate tests on graphical user interfaces?
We've just recently started to do that with some end-to-end testing. And so we originally did not have those graphical tests, and now they are coming in. It looks like we got another bug here where the image manager is ready. I see it ready, but it's not working. So we'll have to go poke at that as well. We just started adding end-to-end tests in. And Guna is the person who's been driving that work. Hopefully a QA person who's better at doing that kind of testing will be able to help us. But we are starting to layer that in as part of our CI process. I was actually wondering if, Andrew, you're on, if you could demo image scanning in Rancher Desktop and Windows.
Yes.
I'm kind of excited about the Windows side because so many more people use Windows for all their development stuff. It's great to have something really useful there.
Yeah, and we need more Windows users internally on our developer teams so that we can catch some of these things before they even hit QA.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just started up Rancher Desktop. I don't even know what Kubernetes I'm on. 121.3, there we go. And actually, while we're here on the screen, you can see that we have WSL integration. So I have these two distros already existing, and so I can push the kubectl directly to those distros so that I can use the command line tools that I already have, which is really nice. Because prior to this, I had to do a copy over from the Windows side every time I wanted to switch which distro I'm pointing at, or which Kubernetes I'm pointing at. Yeah, so to do a scan of an image, so you would go to the images tag and click on the little hamburger and click scan. Pulls you over here and does the scan, that was really fast. And you can see that, this might not have been the one to pull because it has a bunch of CVEs, but or it has CVEs.
And this is the first pass at our output.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the first pass at our output. I hope when it comes to scanning, we're able to iterate on it and provide something better in the future. But this is a great first pass.
Yeah. It's really nice. I don't have anything that I've built with Kim because I reset this 5 minutes ago.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.